Maybe. There it says we're live.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, guys, welcome back. It is another Tuesday night. It's 9 o'clock, at a little after 9, actually. Central Time, which is the only time zone that matters. So it must be time for some 2A Tuesday. Uh, I am Sandhills, and welcome back to the channel. We're going to go through real quick, and we got a couple minutes that we need to make up here for some lost time because it took me a while to get this going. We want to say hi to everybody that has joined us this week. Over on the Gun Channel side, we've got David Bowling out there. We've got Pete Ortega out there. We've got Husker, Nebraska.
Yes, we do.
Which I haven't seen that name. So
yeah.
Thanks for joining us over there. That's awesome.
So that means there's 3 people in Nebraska.
This is correct.
Hey, you're not that far from here. Cool. I don't know if you have seen us before, Husker, but Ewing, Nebraska is not far from Norfolk, which is where we're broadcasting out of. So thanks for joining us. Over on the YouTube side, we had Mike in here super early. He had to wait extra long because he was here early. Plus, we went late. Tacos and French fries. Guitar Man Pete doing double duty. Who else is here? SS Pawn. Stan is in the house.
All right.
Of course, my beautiful co-host, Sandhills sweetheart. You can't see her, but she's over there keeping up with the chat, making sure I don't miss anything. Jason Stewart says he gets around, so I'm not sure what that means, but I think I've seen him in several chats in the last couple weeks. Midnight Range is lurking out there. We've got, who else do we have out here? Gizzard Gary is around. We've got Gun Loving Grandpa Stanley. We've got Pearl Necklaces. Rich White is there and here. Gunpowder Beauty's out there in the chat. Either Bass Boy or Bass Boy. I'm not sure if we're talking about music or fishing. Agorizer. And I know that there's going to be more people coming through that I'm going to miss. But that's part of having the best wife in the world. She's kind of started backing me up here. She's writing everybody down when she sees them. So yeah. SS Pawn says another Nebraskan. We've got SS Pawn out of Lexington, Nebraska, joining us. And if you get down that direction and you need anything cool, if Stan doesn't have it, I've heard he can hook you up. He can order about anything in. So that's cool. Rupan's out there in the chat as well. Kingpin's there and here. All right, we're gonna let everybody say hello. It's Bass Boy, not Bass Boy. All right, got it. All right, so let's let everybody say hi. We've got everybody's favorite tactical chicken in the house. Gizzard Gary is here to give him the bird. What's up, Gary?
Hey, everybody. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us. Next up, we've got the Kingpin himself. David Bowling is here. I think so.
Chasing down the mute button as always. Thanks for having me, man. Always a pleasure.
Yep. Always a pleasure to have you here. All right. We have Obnoxious One in the house, always keeping it interesting. Except for apparently I'm boring him.
At least he's not filming from the bathroom, so yeah.
I'm sorry. I was on the road for 18 hours yesterday, so I'm still a little out of it.
Are you home now?
Yes, I got home at about 4 a.m. my time, so that would have been, I believe, like 7:36 Central.
Yeah, okay. I don't see how you do your math.
He's trying to speak our language. I think he's attempting to translate Central Time Zone. So
I think that spending time in Central Time Zone would have been good for you, but apparently it's affected you in a negative way. I'm sorry about that. All right, but thanks for joining us. We've also got Rich White in the house. This week Unloaded is here.
Hey, how's it going, guys? And I just want to throw out there, Stan, that is one beautiful Smith & Wesson Model 27-2 you have. You are one lucky fella right there, man. I tell you, my grandfather had one with the 4-inch barrel. I wish I had it.
Very cool. That means that there's a video somewhere, probably that Travis has had something to do with.
Gary did it. It was Gary.
What?
Yes.
I missed it.
It's one of the ones Gary did at Tulsa.
Yeah, I got a Wanamaker exclusive on that bad boy.
I got to go check that out. All right, I'll be finding that.
Me too.
Yes,
I
man,
missed
we're
it.
gonna have a talk about that when I'm. Oh, I guess I'm already in Lex. Never mind. No, it's all good. Dude, Gary, it was awesome, dude. It was awesome. Yeah.
I didn't even get to meet Stan.
I told look for a big dude wearing an orange shirt. Of course, that's big tattooed guy with a beard and orange shirt on. I mean, you wouldn't find anybody else like that at the gun show, you know.
No, not at all.
Bearded tattoo guy, you know.
If you had said orange shirt that said hashtag Porky Pagan, that would have narrowed it down.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I wore my gun channel shirts.
Oh,
So 38
Yeah.
Super Partisan showed up in a hashtag Porky Pagan shirt, so that was awesome.
That's awesome. Super fan. You called him a super fan in that post you put on Instagram, right?
Yep.
One of them. All right. Well, moving
If
right
Gary's
along.
interviewing SS Pond, does that make him Gizzard P11 or?
I think
No.
so.
Yeah, that'd be my other kid. I got Crackle P11 and Gizzard P11 as two children now.
Yep. Gary is Travis's son from his first marriage. To I don't know who that was.
Wait, I was married before? Dude, I don't remember that at all.
I was
Maybe
going to
that's
come up
why.
with something really clever
Mm.
that you were married to, and now my brain just went. So, never mind.
Well, it is Gizzard, so he would have had to have time traveled. So I'm guessing his first marriage was to Elizabeth I.
Well, or it could have been his illegitimate love child with Colonel Sanders too. I'm not sure.
This is true. I
Are
did
we
see.
talking about me or Gary? I mean, I like my chicken, but not that much. So
Gary does too. He's a cannibal. Ask him what he had for dinner on Sunday night.
Oh man.
I did have a chicken sandwich. It was yummy too. It had mushrooms and
It was horrifying.
mushrooms and Swiss cheese. God, it was good.
All right. Well, let's let Fred say hi before he has to go back to work for a little bit.
Thanks. I got to go drive the forklift for about 8 minutes and then I can come back. But
Okay. You go be
18.
with guy, and then come back as Squib.
Okay. 18 hours from Tulsa to central North Carolina. You're a lightweight. 27 hours from central New Mexico to the metro Detroit area, which turned into 29 because we got a flat tire as soon as we crossed the border. Thank you, state of Michigan.
All right. And last but not least, another fellow Nebraskan. We've got Travis P11, the original.
dude, thank you so much for the invite. I love being here. This is a great show. Guys, make sure you subscribe to everybody that you see in this podcast. They'll have great channels and lots of great information for you. Make sure you check out gunchannels.com, check out guntube.org. And my podcast, Caliber Corner, will be on gunchannels.com this Thursday from 5 to 7 Central Time. So make sure you check it out.
Very cool. I missed it last week because I was at work. This week I might actually be able to join you. So we'll see what happens.
Cool, man. It was a good chat. It was a good discussion.
Cool. I haven't even caught the replay yet because we were busy all weekend and did some other stuff, and I haven't had a chance to catch up. So I'll be doing that and catching Gary's video with the cool Smith & Wesson.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So we're here tonight to talk about a couple different things. Now, earlier in the chat, I do want to just touch on this because Guitar Man had asked about the fundraiser. Well, two things have happened. Number one, I goofed up when I made the first one, and I put an end date on it, so it ended after March 31st, and then you couldn't donate to it anymore. So I started a new one, and I was smart enough this time to not put an end date on it, so it's still there. And then out of our $2,500 goal, we had $160. So that is now pledged to the new pool, I guess they call it, a money pool over there on PayPal. So I have updated the link in the videos and the Facebook post, so that should take you to the right one now if we go find that. So go check out the Facebook page or the video on the channel that has the Nebraska Strong as the thumbnail, the Nebraska Strong picture. And then if you care to help out the Nebraskans that have been affected, then go ahead and do so. And if you're not able to, you just don't want to send some money, then at least share the video if you would, and go from there. So, all right, and just to let everybody know, there is forecasted up to a foot of snow for the western part of the state tomorrow night, and they're talking possibly half a foot to 8 to 10 inches maybe here. So we'll see what happens, but just when you think you're done with flooding and blizzarding and everything else, then more snow comes. And then that's going to melt, and then that's going to have to run downstream, and there's no end in the foreseeable future for this. So,
and just for the record, I mowed yesterday with shorts and a t-shirt on. I just want to get that out right now. So
right.
I actually am going to get the snowblower out tomorrow after I get home from work.
Yeah.
I thought I had it packed away for good for the summer, for the spring.
I don't know if this is the only state in the union where you can do this, but it's not unusual to use your lawnmower and your snowblower in the same week.
In the same week, in the same
Yeah,
48-hour time
even within
span.
the same
Yeah.
24-hour period.
I should have posted some pics today because everything's green and lush and looks fantastic, and there's insects flying, and there's budding on the leaves, and there's birds. Now tomorrow's going to be like a winter wasteland.
It did kill my first mosquito of the season Saturday night.
Did you?
Yeah, but I was happy about it because here's the thing is the dance that we were DJing, the groom's family is all from Minnesota. And so I'm just happy that they didn't bring any of their state bird mosquitoes down with them. This thing was still just a tiny little mosquito, and so I was safe. It didn't try to pick me up. But those Minnesota mosquitoes, I've seen them suckers, and you got to have at least a 10 gauge just to wing them. So they're big up there. I was pretty happy it was not a Minnesota mosquito. We were in South Dakota. It was okay. So all right. So yeah, on the fundraiser, that is still going, but it's going slow just because I haven't done as much with it this last week, and I need to get out there and get that link back out and in front of some people again. And then I'm also thinking here we may open one up, and there's a benefit coming up here in May on Star Wars Day. It's not a Star Wars party, but it's on Star Wars Day, and if you don't know what that is, then you should Google it and find out. But that is for my mother-in-law who has a new kidney, and then also for the friend who donated a kidney to make this all possible, to help cover some of the travel expenses and medical expenses, time off work, things like that. So we may be opening up another pool just for anybody that wants to help out with that benefit and send something their way too. My friend Daniel really is a superhero because nobody asked him to do this. He just let us know after he'd already started the process with testing that he wanted to do this. And even though he couldn't give his kidney to Sandhills Sweetheart's mom, he gave his kidney to somebody that he still hasn't met, doesn't know who it is. And because of that, there was a chain of live donations, live kidney donors that made it possible that Sweetheart's mom got one as well the next day. So we're still pretty happy about that. So, all right, moving right along. The reason we're all here tonight is to discuss a couple things like socialism and democracy, things like that. And then I don't know if everybody saw the name on the chat here, but I just want everybody to know that even though I'm against socialism, just the very idea of having a democracy also scares me half to death. So I'm guessing probably a lot of people already understand what I'm talking about, but for those of you who are not aware, we do not live in a true democracy here in the U.S. A lot of people try and say, "Hey, this is a democracy." That's not the case. And the reason that I say that is because in a democracy, a true democracy, majority rules. 51% of the vote gets their way. If there are 10 people and 6 people vote that person number 10 should die, then all of a sudden there's 9 people. That's how that works. If the majority votes that you shouldn't have your house anymore, or whatever, then that just happens. That's a true democracy, and we don't want that. That's why our forefathers built us a constitutional republic, which means that the majority gets to vote on the laws, but the laws actually say what we can and cannot do. So that's why I'm against democracy, but I'm also vehemently against socialism, because I don't think the government should be the major power or the only power in any country and determine who gets what, who has what, who does what, anything like that. So as far as any of this goes, just opening thoughts. We don't necessarily have to go around the horn here, but what does everyone on the panel have to say about just the whole idea of socialism, democracy, any of it. Well, what are your first thoughts?
I'll just say that I'm constantly having to correct students that I know in the school where I teach that use democracy and don't realize that. I mean, they're taught, constitutional republic, but you always hear what? This is a democracy. I thought we lived in a democracy. They think that democracy is not it. It's they've got the term completely mixed up with constitutional republic, and I don't know how or why this has come to be this way, but it's interesting. It's a constant battle for me. The second thing I want to say real quick is that Matt, NEA, did an awesome video many years ago when he still had hair about the differences between a constitutional republic versus democracy. And that actually reeled me into his channel, which then brought me into a lot of the other gun videos. So that's a great video. You guys need to check it out. He gives a great, simple explanation. Sit down. I think you can have your kids watch it. I don't think there's anything inappropriate in it. It's very well done. So
if you get a chance, would you either throw that in the chat here tonight, or if you don't find it tonight, once this goes back in the replay, just throw that in a comment on the chat, would you?
Yeah.
And as far as why these kids are saying we live in a democracy, pay attention to what the left is saying in this country every time something comes up. It's our democracy, our democracy, our democracy.
Yeah, it's your democratic right, that kind of crap, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a huge difference
into these kids' heads that we live in a democracy when we don't. Why? Because it fits what they want to do with their wanting to get rid of the electoral college and all this other stuff that all would lead more to a democracy. And that's why you hear from the left all the time, we're a democracy. And that's why you start to hear kids saying we're a democracy, because that's all they hear all the time whenever they turn the TV on.
It's not just that. There's also a case with a lot of schools, not a certain school I went to, because when it came to books on, we always discussed it as a republic. But a lot of schools nowadays teach it as being a democracy instead of a republic.
And that's my oldest daughter, in case you're wondering.
Okay, I thought maybe your voice just changed really quick there.
And in defense of public schools, that's not the case in my school, because I'm friends with the history teachers. I've subbed the history classes before. I've seen their books. I'm always looking through it, looking for fallacies. Not always the situation. So just, again, in defense of the schools.
Yeah.
Depends on the school, depends on the textbook, depends on the department, the person teaching it,
Yeah.
Yep. Come in and try and tell us that our books were wrong and that we live in a democracy instead of a republic.
Yeah. I remember when that happened. I about went into the school and tore the teacher's head off.
Wow. It's not good. It's not good that people are being taught. I don't know what else to call it besides misinformation.
Yeah, and you see it on at universities too. You go to the big left-wing universities, and you hear the same thing coming out of the mouths of professors.
Yeah, it's pushing an agenda is all it really is. It's one way of sick way of doing it to our kids.
It doesn't surprise me near as much to hear about it happening in a university as it does in middle school, junior high, high school. Universities, I think, years ago kind of started into a shift where our kids today in colleges are not being taught anymore how to think. They're getting taught what to think. And we've kind of seen this. It's getting worse all the time, but we've kind of seen this happening and picking up speed, over the years, but not quite as much until just recently in the the lower levels of high school and earlier than that. So hearing that professors are spouting whatever agenda they have, that's nothing new. But when this starts spilling over into into the curriculum that's determined by the state, then we're starting to have problems.
Yeah, and it's getting younger and younger. Every year they start teaching this stuff to these kids younger and younger. Look what's going on with these books in kindergarten where they're having kids learn about transsexuals and homosexuals. Why? Because it fits that agenda.
Well, exactly. And it's the same thing with just a lot of different things. Even just sex ed, things like that. That's getting taught younger and younger, earlier and earlier. It's becoming an issue in children that are younger and younger all the time. So, some of this stuff is, I guess some of it's necessary. We'll not get off onto that side road, but there's things that I wish that kids could be taught besides what they're being taught in the sex ed classes. But,
and then they try to teach them Spanish. They should be teaching them English. What do you need Spanish for anyway? You know, I mean, seriously.
right.
Well, they need Spanish to see another job, Travis. Come on.
Yeah.
At this point in life, I really wish I spoke Spanish or at least understood Spanish. It would sure help me out with my job too. But okay, so as far as socialism, we've all heard the same thing here, that socialism hasn't worked because all those other countries who've tried it in the past and failed just didn't do it right. And we're not talking about socialism like that. We're talking about democratic socialism. And it's going to be different and it's going to be better and you're going to get free stuff. Right?
Okay, so democratic socialism, so they're talking about the Greek city-state of Athens?
Go on with that thought.
Well, the Greek city-state of Athens was pretty much a socialist democracy, and it failed. It's, you know how the mantra is, no socialist country has ever been successful. The same is true of every country that has tried running as a democracy. It's never been successful. You always end up with mob rule. And what happens? Mob rule leads to anarchy. What happens? Anarchy leads to a vacuum, and a vacuum is filled by something else. It never works.
Yeah, anarchy leads to the vacuum, and the vacuum is normally filled by people saying, hey, somebody needs to restore order. Somebody steps in and says, I can fix this. And then they do. It's normally somebody who orchestrated the anarchy to begin with. And then you've got just a few people back in power, which is technically called oligarchy, which is ruling by a few people. And so then you go back into, the models that we typically see with socialism, communism, or even most monarchies have not been, there's maybe been one figurehead, one king or one queen who they say has the power, but it's always the advisors and the people that convince the king or queen to do this stuff that actually have the real power, right? That's where we get the term the power behind the throne, right? And even in an oligarchy, it's always the bureaucrats who have the ear of the prime minister or whatever the title is, dictator, whatever you've got, who ultimately influence what happens there too.
Yeah, and you see this with not just ancient Athens, but with the other Greek city-states as well. Sparta was extremely tyrannical in their way of doing things. And what else? The island of Minos and all of it. It was all oligarchies, and they all had some socialist influence. Some of them were democracies like Athens. Then you had Sparta, which was a dictatorship. And then Minos was a monarchy in name. So they had all three different types, but they all had a socialist type of agenda to them, even though back then it wasn't known as socialism. And they all failed. All of them eventually failed for the same reasons.
Right. Now, let me ask everyone's opinion on this too, because one of the things that we hear about is, with it's not just all the free stuff, but we hear about things that are we already have socialism in our country right now because the schools are run by the government. We've got Medicare, we've got the Postal Service. We've already got socialism working in our country for the good of the people. So why not just go full socialism? What do you say when you hear that from someone?
Government-run schools have been a devastating mistake, and there's years and years of evidence to prove that. Government-run post office, how many times has it been close to bankruptcy? Every other government-run facility or agency is either way, way over budget, way, way overstaffed, or is a colossal failure. When the Board of Education or whatever, I can't even think of it right now, the federal thing for education took over, the stats on American education plummeted. And instead of being at the top of the world in education, we're, somewhere in the middle of the pack, maybe, 20 something, 30 something in that area. So there's stats that will back up the fact that everything that the government touches and tries to establish is a train wreck. And Social Security, my opinion on Social Security is it shouldn't have existed in the first place. So for people who say, well, what about all the people who have paid into Social Security all the time? You should have never paid a penny into it in the first place. It was a Ponzi scheme set up from the very beginning, and the government was never meant to be your bank account.
So, question for you guys then. Do we're talking about the government getting into schools and me being a teacher and stuff, but are you guys more in favor of states making their own determinations of what they need and how they're going to run their schools, the state themselves? Or do you consider that the government, or what? What do you guys think? Because in my opinion, Nebraska is always trying to avoid the feds. When they come to us, when they tried to push Common Core curriculum, we were the last state that held out and said no. When it comes to things like No Child Left Behind, we were one of the last states that were finally basically forced at financial gunpoint to take it. And then it eventually, disappeared NCLB. I mean, some states are very, very, because we feel like we can take care of our own. We know what works best for our kids. We don't want the federal government getting in that. But there is some oversight from the state. There's a lot of funding that comes from the state. The rules and regulations have to pass state law. So what do you guys think about that?
Well, here in West Virginia, as soon as the Republicans got control of the House and the state Senate, Common Core was gone.
Yeah.
That was one of the first things they did. It was out of there.
Yes. I mean, I agree that I don't like to see the federal government, especially when you consider how little amount of funds actually go into a school system from the feds. It's maybe 15%, yet they want to make up 100% of the rules that tell you how you can function and what you have to follow and what you have to do. It really is that lopsided, especially here where the majority of the funding comes from property taxes by the taxpayers.
Yeah.
And lotto funds and stuff like that. But yeah.
And what I think about too is, and this applies to schools and a lot of other industries in our country as well. But if you wanted to be the highest paid teacher, not necessarily in your town, but if you wanted to get one of the best paying teaching jobs at the high school level in the state of Nebraska, what kind of school would you be looking at, Travis? You wouldn't be looking at a public school, right?
I wouldn't be looking at private, like parochial schools. Their salaries are way below public schools.
Are they not? Okay.
Oh yeah, no. Well, I mean, maybe it depends. Maybe it
it
depends. Like my own high school was trying to get me to come back and teach, and the salary was about 2/3 of the starting salary for my district.
Okay, cool. Well, good.
But what you should
Good
say
on
is
that.
how much you have to spend in order to make more as a teacher, how much you have, how much more hoops you have to jump through to get a piece of paper that says you have a master's degree if you want to make more in what you go into. I mean, don't go into education if you want to get rich. I'll just say that right now.
Sure. Yeah, any teacher that's doing it for the money is going to be sorely disappointed, and so are the students. But
there could be some higher end private schools, or could be some higher end parochial schools that pay really well for the teachers. But in general, I mean, the Catholic school system, at least, I don't believe the teachers are higher paid than a state-based salary.
Okay. Now, if you look at a lot of other industries, though, if you look at medicine,
yeah,
privatized medicine is where the money is, right? If we have government-run hospitals, we don't have the same care. Just look at state-funded nursing homes versus private nursing homes. The nurses and the aides in the state-run nursing homes, they don't care. The residents don't get the same. I know, and I'm generalizing here, so don't start calling me out on this nursing home or that nurse. But what I'm saying is that the state-run homes typically don't have quite as good a care or quite as happy a residence as some of the private ones do.
Okay, I'm going to counter that, though. Have you ever seen what it costs to put your family member in a nursing home?
Yes. Yes,
okay, and that right there, I mean, I know the industry has to regulate itself, but it's ridiculous. $5,000-$10,000 a month? No.
However,
that is wrong, okay?
However, the talent goes where the money is there, right? If one of us, let's say that something bad ever happens, one of us has to draw our firearm and defend ourselves with it. And then we are faced with a lawsuit or even a criminal defense. Do you take the public defender, or do you try to come up with money for a private lawyer? Who's going to do the better job for you?
Plus, if you think about it, there's all kinds of government red tape in the way of the reason that medical care costs so much. There's all kinds of government red tape in the way of why education costs so much, why colleges cost so much. Once again, the government sticks their fingers in things and causes a complete train wreck of everything.
Well, and insurance companies have to do with that in medicine too, and the insurance companies and the government both, I think, sometimes work.
Yeah, and Obamacare has a lot to do with why one of those went up, and it's not the healthcare field. If you look into Obamacare, one of the provisions was the government took over the student loan system, and you saw a climb drastically in how much schooling cost and how much loans and everything. The
Well,
interest
that's been the trend across the years. When our parents went to college, they could go to college, have a job, buy a house, and do all these kinds of things and still get a quality education. Then the more the government's got involved in backing student loans and fundings and stuff like that, you see colleges up the ante, because when junior doesn't pay his college tuition loan, the government backs it up. So therefore, it just breeds more corruption.
But I think Travis brought up a good point about the opposite of socialism. He said that most of the money for the school, the public school, comes from the local property taxes. And as much as I'm against income taxes, I'm not necessarily against property taxes, because here's the thing. If you live in the nicer neighborhood, you're going to pay more in property taxes. Therefore, hence, you should get, in theory, a better school system for your children. Now, you could have somebody whining and complaining, going, well, I don't make that much. I can't afford to live in a nice neighborhood. Why do my kids get a crappy school? All right, dude, get off your butt, work, bust your butt, get re-educated, reinvent yourself, work 2 jobs, work 3 jobs, do whatever it takes to move to that neighborhood. Now you're going to be stuck paying those taxes, by the way, but move to that neighborhood for your kids, for your family. That's incentive. But the government would say, no, we're going to make all the schools the same all the way across the board. That way, the people who don't want to work for it get just as good of an education as the people who do. And somebody could say, no, you're wrong, you're cold-hearted. What about the children? No. I have made lots of sacrifices over the years for my children. I've given up on things I've wanted for my children. I have tolerated things at work for my children. If I can do it, you can do it. That is the opposite of socialism. Socialism say no matter how hard we work, or if you don't work at all, everybody's going to get the same. And I don't believe in that. I believe that you reap what you sow. If you put in a lot, you should get a lot back. That's one of the reasons I don't like income taxes, because I consider them socialism, because you can have 2 people living in the same city, and one person makes more than the other person, and they pay exponentially more in income taxes, but yet they drive on the same streets. The same fire department's going to respond to their emergency call. Their kids go to the same public school. They use the same library. What does that person who pays more in taxes get for their taxes? Is there like some sort of special club for them where they get to go, where the people who don't want to work, who don't pay as much in taxes, don't get to go? No, everybody gets the same stuff. So I like the idea of the harder you work, the more you pay, but the more you pay, the more you get for yourself and for your family. And some people may disagree with me on that, but for me, that's incentive for everybody to try to do well instead of milk the system, become dependent on the government.
Well, I agree with that. And yeah, you're right. You should be able to live in a system, and so far we do, where you reap what you sow, right? I mean, some people, and now I know there's always going to be some disparity. Sometimes that comes with your education level. There's a lot of people who work a lot harder physically than I do and make less money, right? But at the same time, there's nothing saying that they have to do that job. They're not forced into doing that job for the rest of their lives. If they want to take control of their own destiny and do a different job, or go get more education so you can get a different job, then you have that option, right? This is the country where you can be born poor and die a millionaire if you apply yourself. And sometimes it takes luck, and sometimes it takes a lot of hard work, but it's possible in this country for that to happen. And we can all come up with a handful of stories of people that we know of who, are millionaires today that didn't have anything growing up, right?
But socialism squashes that.
Socialism would squash that. And what would happen is, I think we've probably all seen different illustrations. One of my favorites is the story of the professor who socialized the test scores on a given test, and the people who failed and the people who aced the test, he averaged it out to where the average test score was down to about a 70. Well, that made the people who didn't study very happy. So the next test, they didn't study because they knew they didn't have to. But here's what happened to the people who studied, all weekend long to take that test. They knew they got every question right. They still got a 70% instead of 100. And so that made them mad. So the next test, they said, I'm not going to do all the work just to have them pass the test. So I'm not going to study this time either. And then nobody passed the test because the cumulative or the average score was below failing. And that's what happens eventually with socialism if it's left unchecked and left on its own. So how do we avoid this? The government steps in and says, somebody has to work sanitation. Somebody has to pick up trash. Somebody has to, do wastewater management, things like that. Somebody has to grow the food. Somebody has to work in the factories and process textiles, and somebody has to make clothes. And we're going to force people into doing it. And if they don't comply, we're going to shoot them. And that's
the right, comrade.
That's the road that we eventually are faced with. If we're going to give free stuff out to everybody, pretty soon nobody wants to work for it. And then we're forced into doing it at the end of a gun barrel. And we don't want that either.
Well, that's the natural progression of socialism, because a basic definition of socialism is you have a business and the government tells you how to run your business. Then a basic definition of communism is the government takes your business and tells you how to run their business. And that's just what socialism is. It's 5 minutes away from communism.
Mm-hmm.
Well, communism is actually a form of socialism.
Those are the words that I was just saying. Like, those are the words that were just coming out of my mouth like just a second ago.
But the way they get it to appeal to people is they say, we'll give you free health care. We'll give you a pension. We'll give you free transportation. We'll give you an Obama, whatever it is. What they're going to do is they're going to give you the cheapest, worst, most unreliable version of whatever service or good it is in order to say, see, we gave you what we said we were going to give you. And it de-incentivizes anybody to want to work. But the thing is, though, that they sell it to you first. It's like, oh, we're going to give you free college, and then come to find out we don't have enough money to pay for it. Or just all these things that the government wants to do, and or says they want to do, and people go, oh, that sounds so good, and then it's be careful what you wish for, you may get it. And that's what ends up happening in these socialist communist countries.
Well, and still nobody has yet to explain to me how we're going to pay for all this free stuff. I just want to share this. This is one of my favorite, when we talk about socialism, this is one of my favorite pictures ever. It just says, it's a Bernie for president sign. It says, I took half your sign because you had one and I didn't. I'm sure you understand. And that's ultimately, that's what socialism is, right? So that if you have something and somebody else doesn't, then you give up what you've got and share it. And that's, again, true socialism means redistribution of everything to make everything equal.
Well, if you look at it from a military standpoint, do you know how we won the Cold War?
We outspent them.
We outspent them.
Right.
They did not have enough money to equip their military in a way that they could actually counter what we were doing. Now, we spent a ton of money. Ronnie Reagan spent trillions on the military. And, it did trickle back into the economy with all the jobs it created, et cetera, et cetera. But the whole thing is they couldn't maintain all their social programs, all the lines for bread and everything else that they were doing, and fund a military that could compete with ours. And they eventually just gave in.
Well,
if that isn't evidence alone that it just doesn't work when you try to have all these people, provided for with the government on what? Without capitalism, you're not going to have the money to do it.
Was it Margaret Thatcher who said the problem with socialism is eventually you run out of other people's money to spend?
Yeah.
I think it was Margaret Thatcher that said that.
Yeah, I believe that's who it was.
Yeah.
It was either her or Churchill. It was one of those two British prime ministers.
It was a British PM. I'm pretty sure it was Thatcher.
I'd say it's probably Maggie Thatcher. She was Britain could use her again. Can they resurrect her?
You know what? They take part of her, get some of her DNA and some of Churchill's DNA and combine it together, and they'd have the perfect prime minister.
And that's how you get Serpentor. Let's not do that.
Oh God.
Cobra,
La, 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 la.
Khan and Phil the Hunt and all that.
Oh God.
Now,
For those of you who are lost, that's a G.I. Joe reference.
a few minutes ago, when we were talking about Greece, the guy comments threw out a question about the Roman Republic, and I thought this was a good question because he asked, wasn't the Roman Republic relatively good for a while? The answer was yes.
Mm-hmm.
The founders, when they put together our republic, actually based it off of the early Roman Republic when they had the triumvirate, which would have been their executive, then they had their Senate, which was legislative, and then they had a judiciary. The problem was that eventually one of those members of the triumvirate became too powerful. That would be Caesar. As soon as that happened, that is when the death knell started for the Roman Republic, and it became an empire, and that's when it went to hell. Before that, their form of government worked very similar to ours.
Real quick, over here on the YouTube chat, Double A's out there wanting a prayer shout out for Hillclimb, Ohio. JB had a bad fall. He's got a fractured skull and a brain bleed, and they're still waiting to hear from the surgeons. So those of you who pray to a higher power, please hold up Hillclimb, Ohio JB in your prayers. That is super, super serious. And our hearts go out to you, Double A.
Yeah,
All
sorry to hear that, A&A.
All right, absolutely. So back to the topic. Yeah, I think about what happened in Rome, and Rome had it working really, really well. When I was in high school, we learned in world history that the fall of the Roman Empire was brought about by two things: war and moral decline. And then I take a look around at my country, which is a republic right now, and I look at not just war, but the conflicts that we have, and the terror attacks that keep happening both on our soil and in other countries that we're fighting in, and moral decline. And I don't think anybody can argue the fact that moral decline is I think it's snowballing. It's picking up speed even. Just looking at, we don't all agree on abortion topics, but just looking at the laws that are being introduced and passed or not passed, depending on the law, the morals have shifted in this country, or some would say have deteriorated or almost all the way gone.
Yeah, you can look at what's happening now, and you look at Rome, and you can see the similarities. It's we don't have gladiatorial conquest or competitions like they had back then. We have the NFL.
Okay, but hold on here, because gladiatorial conflicts didn't happen while Rome was a republic.
No, that happened during the Empire.
Rome was.
That's the point I was making. When you look at when they were a republic, they didn't have that. Why? Because they didn't have to sidetrack everybody. The gladiatorial combats were put in place as a distraction. Now we have professional sports doing the same thing.
Not only a distraction, but also a way to.
And they can't politicians.
Yeah, but let's be realistic. The NFL is a voluntary league to join or not join, and not necessarily every one of the gladiators had the choice to join.
No,
to lions. That was also done to dissuade religion.
Yes, and not all gladiators were slaves. There were volunteer slaves.
I didn't say that they were. I said that not every gladiator was a volunteer.
But let's back up, fellas. Let's back up here, because we weren't at that point.
I just wanted to put that out there. I mean, if you look at the gladiatorial combats, a lot of those free gladiators, they made a lot of money for themselves doing that.
Sure.
How much do you think the practice dummies got paid?
Let's back this up, because that happened way after the fact. When Rome was a republic, you're right. They didn't.
The decline came.
Rome was facing a war, and the Senate couldn't decide whether or not they were going to fight, and so they knew that they couldn't come to an agreement in time, and it was going to jeopardize the entire empire, not even empire, but the entire republic. And so they gave decision-making power to one person. And that person swore that he would return the power back to the Senate when the conflict was over. That's how they got the first Caesar.
And
But
instead,
Caesar
Palpatine
never
took over, and we got some really bad sequels and prequels.
Right. Caesar never gave the power back, and Rome became an empire after that. And they became basically an oligarchy. But before that happened, that's also what led to the moral decline then. After that happened. But they traded in their status as a republic, they traded in rule of law and representation for one person to make all the decisions, good or bad, in for a penny, in for a pound. And that is ultimately where socialism will take you as well, because once we go from the socialism over to the communism, then all of a sudden you've got people who are starving, people who are hungry. That is what breeds revolt, right? That anarchy.
Right.
And then somebody has to step in and clean it up. That's where you go back into, having those other models where you've got that totalitarian regime again.
Yeah, to that video that you sent us all to watch before you had sent us in our emails before the show.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at a very recent empire that all this happened with was the Russian Empire with the Bolshevik Revolution. They got these kids wound up. These kids went out and fought. They created a vacuum. The vacuum was filled by Lenin. You look at Nazi Germany. Hitler riled up the brown shirts. The brown shirts went in, did all the damage. Hitler took out the brown shirts, filled the vacuum. And then
who were the brown shirts working for to begin with? Hitler. They were his. Yeah, it almost always comes out that whoever it is that comes in and ends the fills the vacuum caused by the anarchy, that's almost always the person orchestrating the anarchy to begin with.
So what's your take on modern socialist countries now that function? I'm not saying they're the best, but I mean,
can you really call it functioning? Can you really?
I mean, Canada's been around for a while. Sweden.
Canada's not a socialist country.
They're not socialist countries. You want to talk
Canada, Norway, and Denmark aren't actually socialist countries. They're capitalist countries that have socialist programs.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to look at true socialist countries, you got to look at like Cuba, Venezuela, and those countries are failures.
Venezuela is currently
China.
China's adapted. China has a communist government, but they have a quasi-capitalist economy.
It's kind of a weird makeup on that one. Yeah.
Well, they learned the mistake from the Russian government or the USSR.
Yeah.
And Vietnam that they have to have some type of capitalism in order to maintain their rule as communist.
Yeah. And Vietnam's going down a similar pattern to what China is. That's why you see all these products made in Vietnam. They're doing that same kind of situation as China did, where they still have some sort of communist government, but they're going more in a capitalist economy to go with it, which normally doesn't work. So it's going to be interesting to see how this ultimately plays out. We know that China's currency manipulating. That's been proven umpteen times, but there's nothing anybody can do about it.
Good thoughts, guys. All right. Any other thoughts? Anything else that anybody wants to bring up in the discussion here? I've been trying to keep up a little bit with the YouTube chat, and the gun channels chat kind of has died off here.
The one thing that I wanted to mention about you had said it earlier about the every other time it's been tried wrong. They didn't do it right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an arrogance in that I'm sure if you looked into the history, all the other leaders said the same thing. So when our quote unquote leaders now are saying that those that tried it before just didn't do it right, they're saying that they have this ultimate power, that they'll pick the government and they'll make the decisions because they know how to do it right. And that's a very, very dangerous arrogancy to have running our country.
Not only that, but they're also saying they know what's best for you and me.
Yeah, indeed.
And some of the people, and I'm not necessarily just going to pick on one person or another here, but certain people who think that they know what's best for you and me and for everyone don't even understand the digestive process of a bovine and think that the methane is coming out the back end, which isn't even the case.
Well, that person also has a degree in economics and doesn't understand economics 101. So, I mean,
it's true. Yeah, that's very true. So, but that again, therein lies our problem is we've got a lot of people in our country who are voters who don't necessarily know the difference and haven't paid attention to history and aren't aware of how dangerous some of these programs can be.
And what makes it dangerous is when I decide that I know what's best for you guys, and I'm going to make the decisions for your life, and then when I start to see that it's a failure and it's not working, it's going to affect my ego, and the only way to correct that is through violence. And it's shown throughout history that every time that I decide, not me, I'm just using me as an example, but every time the leader decides that they know what's best, and then they see the failure crashing down at their feet, they result to violence and basically dictatorship. That's why North Korea has starving people everywhere and a big fat leader.
The government can come in and they can say, we know what's best for you, only after they've paid for everything for you. We provided you this. We provided you that. We provided you this. We gave you everything we promised you. Now it's time for us to tell you, kind of like parents with children. When you have children, they legally can't enter into a binding contract. They can't do a lot of things because of their age. They don't know. They don't have a job. They're obligated to go to school, etc., etc., etc. So as their parent, you're responsible for them and you pay for everything for them. Well, on the flip side, your kids are supposed to do what you say. They don't. They're supposed to do what you say. And the government kind of looks at it that way. We'll get you where you're dependent on us, where we take away your rights to do this or do that, your independence, your ability to do things, and we're going to provide you with all this stuff. But the return is you have to obey us. And that just goes against what America is all about. America is about people making their own way and people having the freedom to make their own choices, good or bad. And one of the things is when somebody asks for charity for somebody who's made a bad choice, I have a hard time pulling money out of my wallet to fix their problems because they made a bad choice. When I make a bad choice, I don't go to other people and go, save me. I pull myself out of that bad choice. Socialism doesn't do that. Socialism, says your choice, good or bad, there's no penalty for it unless you defy the government. And I don't know, people want the government to come save them. I just don't think they realize the price they'll pay for it.
In capitalism, there are rewards for hard work. Sometimes there are rewards for great risk. In socialism, there are no rewards, no matter who you are, unless you are in the controlling faction, the people in charge of making the rules, right?
Plus, one of the things that gets looked over when we're talking about capitalism versus socialism is you hear people say, well, what about the poor? What about the sick? What about the elderly? And capitalism answers that, because if you look at the United States, it's far, far beyond any other nation that's ever existed, probably combined, for charitable giving. As in, you reach in your own pocket and you donate somehow to a charity that you believe in or you feel is a good cause. And then even after that, there are plenty of government programs for John Q. Public, who goes to work every day, tries his best, saves his money, budgets his economics responsibly, and then falls on hard times. So right there, there's a safety net that capitalism provides in two different ways. The government can help you if you need it, and your next door neighbor can help you anytime that they can. Socialism doesn't offer that. If my potato gets lost or the dog runs away with it, you're not going to give me your potato because that's the only one you have.
And to your point, If you look at the charitable giving among, just look at politicians, the ones that are espousing the hardest socialism in this country are also the ones that do the least charitable giving. They want everybody else to give, but they don't want to give themselves.
Well, and another aspect of that too, David, if I'm your neighbor and you're on hard times and I have, lots of money in the bank, I can give that as a charitable donation to, help you get on your feet or whatever. But if I don't want to, I don't have to. Whereas in socialism, if you don't have money and I have money, then all of a sudden I don't have money because the government took my money to give it to you and everyone else. And we're all, given the same allotment.
And the problem that comes with that is when the government, says I'm going to take $5 from Obnoxious, from Gary, from Squib, from Travis, and I'm going to give it to Sandhills. Well, Gary's sitting there saying, but I wanted to give him 100. Well, you can't give him 100. Everybody's got to give 5. So that limits people's charitable giving when the government's going to come take what they think you should give as opposed to what you want to truly give.
I want to go back real quick to the charitable giving thing. Let's think about our political opposition. We talk about the anti-2A groups. Look at who they give their money to. It's just there to promote the agenda they want and themselves. Are they giving to something that's going to help everyone? No, probably not. They're going to give to something that's going to help ensure, that their agenda can get pushed through. I'm just thinking about like the Bloombergs and stuff like that, where their money goes.
Sure. And that's a valid point too. Ghost has a great comment out here in the chat. It says the problem with welfare is that people can make more on it than a job, and there's no reason to get a job. Yes, we have incentivized sitting on your butt and drawing welfare. We have incentivized filing unemployment. We've incentivized, everything else other than hard work. And if you're somebody who either can't or chooses not to work, then socialism is very attractive because the incentive is there to not have to work hard, right? Because the government will give you something that they took from somebody else. But again, like we already established, that eventually means that nobody wants to do any of the hard jobs, and then you're forced to do the hard jobs because the government says you have to, or you can't live. It's not that you can't live here anymore, it's that you can't live anymore at all. And so, again, it does create its own problems if we would go to something like that. But yeah, Ghost makes a great comment out there. So here's another one though. Let me throw this one out, and just so everybody knows, you probably figured this out. Everything that I bring up doesn't necessarily mean this is how I feel, but I just wanted to get the discussion going. What about the fact that, and I don't remember the exact numbers, and somebody can check them if they want to, but most of the wealth in this country is controlled by, what is it, less than 10% of the population, isn't it? Down to like 2 or 3% that control most of the wealth in the country. It's not fair that they should have all that money, and then we've got people who live in the streets or can't afford to put food in their fridge.
Well, the argument that I would make against that is a capitalist nation, especially the United States, if you look at the actual numbers, poor people are getting richer and rich people are getting richer. So yes, there's an income gap, but it doesn't mean that poor people are getting poorer. And the narrative that goes around that says poor people are getting poorer is just an absolute lie. There's gobs and gobs of statistics that say that even the poorest people in this country are some of the richest people when you take out the rest of America and start looking at the rest of the world. Poor people in some other countries would love to be poor here.
So could we say that the middle class actually has it harder in our country than the poor or the rich?
Yeah, we pay for everything.
Yeah.
We pay for everything.
I mean, look at insurance. We don't make a ton of money to pay our premiums, but we're not poor enough to get help. We have to pay, we end up paying our taxes in because we make an income. We a lot of times make too much money to get things like grants or assistance because we make too much or we make enough. Really you're basically the one that's fitting the bill for everybody, everybody's riding on your coattails.
And those that have, the super wealthy people, And I'm not saying that this is good, bad, or indifferent, but the fact is most super wealthy people aren't working, super hard physical jobs. They're hiring that done, right? I mean, you own a company, you don't go down and work the factory floor, you run the company from an office, right? So the middle class is the one that's doing most of the hard work in this country, and yet we're the ones who, like you said, we don't get to live for free. We don't have all the money in the world. So yeah, I'd say the middle class probably has it worse. I've heard from more than one person who doesn't live in the U.S. Look, from the outside looking in, that why wouldn't people want to get into this country? Even our poor people are fat.
Yeah, there was a study when I was in school a couple of years ago that we looked at. It was for our sociology class. I'm trying to remember how it was worded, but the average home in the United States, and this was like 5 or 6 years ago, had 2 televisions within the home. Other countries, the poor wouldn't even be able to tell you what a television was. The idea of poverty in this country is so skewed, it's ridiculous.
How many of us have been in line at the grocery store behind somebody who has to put their brand new iPhone in their pocket to pull out their EBT card to pay?
Oh yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, myself working in grocery stores for years and years and years, you had the couple that would, and I get it. There are people that genuinely need help because of whatever reason they genuinely need it. Okay, that's what those systems are for. But they will use what was the food stamps back in the day to buy garbage food, and then they'd whip out the cash to buy the lobster tails and the alcohol and the cigarettes. And here I am. I'm a middle class kid, single, paying an 18% tax bracket. Making $6 an hour at a grocery store. I'm paying for that for them. That really, really does bother me. And a lot of times you can say, well, it's not that many people that do it. Nah, I beg to differ. I'm sure we have a pretty healthy percentage of people that, and there are, like I said, there are people that genuinely need it. There are people that are disabled or have serious health issues and work can't happen because of that. But I would say it's a much smaller percentage than people that, whatever, it's an unmarried couple with 5 or 6 kids that are just banking off of it, or they're below poverty level or whatever. So yeah, people completely take advantage of this. This is what I don't understand is why I'm not a big fan of assistance programs in general, but why is it that we can't regulate food stamps or EBT cards, SNAP cards, whatever you want to call them? Why can't we regulate those like we do the WIC program? Where it's limited to just basic core food groups for your kid to keep your kid. Why can't it be just dairy, fruits, vegetable, meat, bread, and that's all you get? Instead, it's this set amount that you can blow on anything you want, short of alcohol and tobacco.
This should not be available on food stamps or EBT.
Yeah, I don't understand why. How hard would that be to say it's got to come from the 4 food groups? Because to me, that would promote purchasing core agricultural items for a country. It would keep the ag industry going. It would ensure your kids are getting nutritious food for the most part. I mean, instead, it's Doritos and Twinkies and cold cuts and whatever,
But there you go, trying to make sense again.
And I'm not saying I'm for regulation. I'm just saying, God, if anything, just specify what you can buy and can't buy. Because I know with the WIC program with families, you're limited to certain brands of products and certain quantities, and that's what you get. You get the 2 gallons of milk, you get certain brands of cheese and vegetables or whatever. It's not, you can't just grab anything off the shelf.
Yeah,
I would feel better having my money go towards that, Yeah,
somebody worked in a grocery store. I'm very familiar with the WIC checks. And then they get mad when you tell them they can't get something on it. Like, no, that's not on the list.
I've been in line. I've been in line getting my generic brand groceries, and somebody in front of me pulls out their EBT card and they're buying organic foods and stuff from the deli and all this other stuff that I can't afford. And I'm there going, well, it must be nice. But here in Michigan, there's a 10-cent deposit on every can of pop, beer, or juice. So what they'll do is they'll load up 2 shopping carts full of pop, buy it with their EBT card, go out back, empty them all, bring them back into the store, run them through the machine, get the tickets, and then go to customer service and cash them in for cash. And our tax-paying dollars paid for that.
Well, discrimination politics play a lot involved in that, because the first thing that any kind of special interest group is going to do when you say that you can't buy Skittles with your food stamps or your EBT card is they're going to scream some form of discrimination. And generally throughout the history of our country, when the media starts calling you discriminatory X, Y, and Z, you lose, they win, and the narrative changes to you can't tell us what to do with that.
Who does that discriminate against besides maybe the American Dental Association?
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. We're the apples every day. That's what I'm talking about.
And you were talking, I forget who it was, brought up about the people with EBT cards with their iPhones. They actually have apps for cell phones now where you can program and do like Samsung Pay or Apple Pay with your EBT card from your phone.
I was trying to add is there actually are government programs now with some of those people if they're on those programs to get them where they can get those phones.
No, they don't. I work at a cell phone company, and the government programs help you with money off for service, but they don't allow for getting you a brand new iPhone.
In certain states they do.
They do.
In certain
There was somebody who sponsored that in this state, but it failed, where they were trying to get iPhones for people with EBT cards.
And maybe it's a gift. I don't know that person's situation.
Yeah.
But we all know that for every person who legitimately got that phone and didn't, they're living off the government. You know that there's other people that are because they can, because that's what the left wants to happen. They want to make people dependent on the government because then it's a less of a shock to transition over into socialism. We're already dependent on the government. They're already making our decisions. So why would we want to have our own free will again when they're going to take care of us? They're going to give us everything we need. If you don't believe that, just go a couple hours up the road from where I live and go to the Rosebud Sioux Indian Reservation in South Dakota and look at how well the government takes care of people when they give them everything they need. Look how they're living.
There's another 3 cheers for capitalism. Going back to the cell phone topic, the $900 iPhone that some people have, or the Galaxy S1500, whichever one's out right now, you can get a comparable phone to that at Walmart for half of the price.
Yeah, you go with, instead of getting like
capitalism made that happen.
Yeah, instead of getting like the top line iPhone or the top of the line S10, which is the new one that just came out from Samsung, I got an S9, but they got their J series, which are essentially a series or two older phone, and you'll pay like $100 for one of those.
135 in my store. Yeah. But yeah, to David's point, we have, because of capitalism, there isn't just one government issued cell phone. There's competition in the market. And it's healthy. And competition keeps everyone sharp, right? I mean, the worst thing in the world for a small town is if they have 2 grocery stores, is to lose one of them. Because then they have no competition to keep the prices down. So, I don't know how it is across most of the country, but I've seen a lot of towns lose their grocery store, small towns, because now that we're a mobile society, it's 20 minutes away to, go down the road to Walmart, and they're not shopping the local grocery store anymore. And all of a sudden we don't have a local grocery store anymore.
Well, where we used to live, we had 2 stores, but one was a gas station, so it didn't really count. And there was only one actual grocery store, so their prices were way higher than if you would go to somewhere else that had a bunch of different stores.
Exactly. Now, in a small town, logistics does play a factor, and prices are always going to be higher because of freight cost. But at the same time, if there's 2 grocery stores, freight cost gets cut in half because the same affiliated or whatever AWG truck can deliver to both stores. And second of all, with competition comes price wars.
Yeah, and by the way, that was my youngest daughter. She just got home from work, so she decided she wanted to play too.
This is awesome. I love the fact that you guys are doing this as a family. That's cool. Also, it sounds like you've got some daughters with brains in their heads. So kudos to Dad.
Yeah, they both work at the local Walmart.
There you go. I'm guessing that they're not cashiers.
No, they are. They're both.
Oh, I deal with cashier work and self-checkout post work, so I deal with a lot of people.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do. Two daughters are both cashiers. That's like 50% of the cashier force in a Walmart store anymore. So,
well, my son works there too. He works in the stock department.
He's a Cat 2 personnel person.
I used to unload trucks at Walmart way back in the day.
Yeah, when I worked at Giant Eagle in Pittsburgh, I was a supermarket cashier and stock. I did a little bit of everything. So I also worked dairy. So
yeah, I've kind of done a lot of things too. All right, so one last thing I kind of wanted to touch on here. We've had lots of different people propose this over the years in different ways, shapes, and forms. The most recent was the person who wants to propose a 70% income tax on people who make over $10 million. Not all $10 million, right? Just the tippy top, just that $10 million and $1. 70% of that goes to the government. My philosophy is there's no reason income tax shouldn't be a flat tax the way that sales tax is. Whether I make $20,000 a year or $200,000 a year, when I go to Walmart in the state of Nebraska for non-food items, I'm paying 5.5% state tax, and right now I'm paying 1.5% city tax. So 7% tax on all my non-food items at Walmart here in town. It doesn't matter who comes through the line behind me; they're paying 7% tax. It doesn't matter if I go to Baumgart's down the road or Menards; I'm still going to pay 7% tax. Yet, depending on how much money I made this year, I may or may not pay in more or less tax, which I find completely asinine. I cannot understand in my mind, and maybe somebody can explain it to me that makes sense in a way that makes sense to me. I don't understand why income tax can't be a flat tax, and just the government's going to have to learn how to live on not stealing everything from us.
I don't know if they can figure out how to unravel the mess that they've made with the income tax to even implement a flat tax.
Okay, you may very well have said it right there. But does anybody understand economics better than I do? Because I'm no expert for sure. But can anybody explain me why a flat tax isn't the best idea?
Income tax is socialism, though. It is socialism. Even if it's a flat income tax, it's still socialism.
The reason that the flat tax is it has a problem in this country is the same reason that you can't tell them they can't buy Skittles. Discrimination argument comes in. And the first thing that people will say is the guy that has $10,000 can afford to pay 5% of his tax, where the guy that only has $100 can't afford to pay 5%. And they're instantly right there, their discrimination argument is going to kick up.
How is it discriminatory, though? It's the most fair thing in the world. Everybody gives in 5%.
It's not fair, though, because 50% of the population pays zero income tax.
Right. And
you've gotta take down common sense and pick up your feelings and see that 5% of 10,000, you can still do a whole bunch of stuff with that leftover money. 5% of 100, now I'm struggling with every dollar.
Sure, but doesn't that incentivize better?
See, now you're also going against the grain there, talking about incentivification.
Well,
you can't be incentivized to do something. That's bad.
But I mean, again, I can't understand why this is bad for the country. I get it. The people that are making less than $10,000, 10% of that's $1,000. That leaves them $9,000 to live on. Versus, if you're making $100,000, you've still got $90,000 to live on. I get that concept, okay, but I don't understand why that's not fair.
Oh, it's totally fair.
No, it's not fair at all, because both people still get the same services from the government. If anything, the person paying less in income taxes, making less money, has the opportunity to get more from the government than the person busting their butt to make that $100,000. So it's not fair at all. That's why income tax in any form is pure socialism. They're distributing the wealth. Somebody who sits on their butt all year long and collects unemployment gets a $10,000 tax return, and they didn't work. Somebody who works 7 days a week and about kills themselves and makes $100,000, pays $20,000, $25,000 in income taxes, and what do they get for it? Meanwhile, the other person's collecting food stamps and getting their kids free child care from the local school system, and just, on and on and on. And it's like, how is that fair? And somebody go, well, yeah, but the other person's got money. They got money because they work for it.
Exactly.
So any income tax of any sort is pure socialism. It's taking from the rich and giving to the lazy. Whether the rich are lazy or they're hardworking, that is beside the point. It's taking from those who are well-to-do and giving to the lazy.
One thing that I want to make clear real quick is I don't care how you got your money. As long as you didn't take it from anybody illegally. If you sat on your duff and your parents gave you millions and millions of dollars, that's great. Good for you. I wish mine did. If you worked your fingers to the bone and you got $1 in your pocket, that's good. I'm glad you have your dollar. I don't want to demonize somebody who's rich, whether they worked hard for it, invented something, or that it was just handed to them, because that's their lot in life. And that's another thing that a capitalist nation allows you to do. It allows you to take what wealth you have and give it to whoever you want for whatever reason that you want.
Well, and the argument against that is based on the premise that inequality is evil. And I, for one, think that inequality is necessary. Inequality is not inherently evil. Nobody on this panel, nobody in this chat is equal to anybody else. There are things that Squib can do that I can't do. There are things that I can do that Gary can't do. That's what makes us us, right? And inequality is not a bad thing. I don't want to be equal in every way to my spouse. There's a lot of things that she's good at that I am horrible at. And that's why we work well together, though, right? So inequality in itself doesn't mean it's necessarily a bad thing, but you'll hear a lot of people say that inequality is bad. And we have to work against that, make everybody equal, make everybody the same, give everybody the same trophy, whether they won or lost, because it's not fair that, Timmy got a trophy and Billy didn't, because Billy didn't come in first place in the race. And that's, again, where we start going down that skewed logic trail, and all of a sudden we've got people saying, well, yeah, you're right, that's not fair. Well, yeah, what else can you get me that I don't have to work for?
Well,
but because we're not socialists, because we're a free country for the time being, everyone, I don't care who you are, how old you are, where you were born, what color your skin is, or any of that, everybody here has the opportunity to better themselves. It's going to take work. Yes, sometimes it gets handed to you. Yes, sometimes you are in the right place at the right time. And those are great when those things happen. But overall, if you want to get anywhere in this country, it's going to take work, and you have the opportunity. But if we become a socialist or communist type country, there is no, it's not just even incentive. There's absolutely no opportunity. You get all the free education in the world. The doctor makes the same as the cashier. And, somebody wants to go, well, see, at least now they're equal. But are they really? What did the cashier do to get the job? They just showed up and filled out an application. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people want that. Some people are entry level, they're new starting out, or they're restarting their life, and this is what they've got. Or they want a flexible schedule, or they don't want a certain amount of responsibility once you start moving up the chain. They don't want none of that. They just want to make X number of dollars, and they don't want to have any skills to do it. You've got another person who will go to school for 8 years to become a doctor and pay on those student loans for a long time because they want the money, they want the title, they want to do and it's both people have choices, and both people made choices. Nobody put one person's arm behind their back and said, you have to be a doctor, and another person, say, you'll never be a doctor. This country is free, and anybody can do whatever they want within reason. They can make themselves and if you have a setback in your life, you can reinvent yourself in this country. You can't do that in a socialist country.
Well, better yourself is a relative term as well, and that's one thing that people need to get a grasp on, is just because you better yourself doesn't mean that you've became a doctor or you're a millionaire. Because even though it is true that you can pull yourself up from your bootstraps and do whatever you dream, that's not quite true. There's certain people who will only get so far because their aptitude will only take them so far. Not everybody can be doctors.
Mhm.
Not everybody can be rocket scientists or astronauts, and not everybody has to be a Waffle House cook like somebody that we know.
Mhm.
You know, so better yourself. This has to be what you determine is better. Now, if you determine in your life that better is swimming in your vault like Scrooge McDuck, you've got a lot of work in front of you. You better invent something. You better build the better mousetrap. If better yourself is to wake up in the morning and not have to stress out about how you're going to keep the lights on, that's an achievable goal. So that's the first thing that you have to get a grasp on is what does bettering yourself mean to you?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, now real quick here, we've got a late addition to the panel. We have Jim Burgess joining us, so let's give Jim a chance to say hi to everybody, and then you can have the floor. I don't know how much of this you've caught if you weren't listening before or not, but socialism, capitalism, any of the democracy, constitutional republic, you can kind of just give us your thoughts if you want to impart wisdom upon us, Jim.
Oh, you want wisdom, huh? How y'all doing, by the way?
We're great.
Good to hear.
We're having a good discussion here. People are keeping it lively, and I love when that happens.
That's awesome. I saw someone. You've probably already covered a lot of the ground that I would have. I
Go ahead.
wish people would get off of this. There is virtue to democracy as long as it doesn't become, to use an overused phrase, tyranny of the majority, which is 50% plus one. I think that there are way too many people out there who have bought this idea that the United States is a democracy, and it ain't. It's not. It wasn't ever designed to be, and frankly, I don't think it should be. We get a lot of bad policy from democracy as soon as people figure out that they can just constantly override the will of this very small majority or minority, or a very small majority can overwhelm the will of everyone else, And I say that even with, Trump and the president's office, and people are saying, well, people who say they're conservative saying, well, we can do what we want now. Well, except that you're limited by this little document that even a lot of conservatives want to ignore, and that's why we're actually a republic. So it shouldn't really be working that way, and I think both sides do damage with it,
Mm-hmm.
As far as taxation goes, I think one of the biggest mistakes we've ever made was to ratify the 16th Amendment. I think that was one of the final nails in the coffin for the states and maybe the republic.
The 17th wasn't very good either.
Oh, no. 16th and 17th were kind of a 1-2 punch to pretty much stick a fork in the states.
Mm-hmm.
We might let you set your speed limits now.
Yeah. Yep. I 100% agree with that. All right. Does anybody have any final thoughts? We'll go back around the horn here in a little bit, and let everybody kind of plug channels and whatnot and wind down. But any other thoughts anybody wants to get out, or maybe a point you wanted to talk about or make that you didn't get a chance to hear yet tonight?
Yeah, if you're looking to become a socialist in your own personal life and you like wealth redistribution, I hear that Obnoxious One has a Patreon page going on right now, and he's going to help fight against e-begging, so that would be a good charity to give to.
Absolutely. Let's redistribute some of that wealth over to Obnoxious One. And I'm not above e-begging, so I've got Patreon too. You can go check out Sandhills Shooter over there if you want to. I'll take any redistribution of dollars that anybody wants to send, but right now I'd rather they go to other Nebraskans who need it worse than I do. That's why I have that PayPal fund started. So if anybody wants to redistribute some wealth over to the people in Nebraska who've been affected we're going to make sure that that money gets sent to people in the state that need it. There's a couple organizations. I know Farm Bureau of Nebraska is doing some stuff. There's Orphan Grain Train here right in Norfolk that's doing some stuff, and I know there's a few others that make sure that the money stays right here in the state. So we're going to find a couple of those funds, but we need your help. We can't do it on the $160. We can, and that money is definitely going to get donated. I just like to grow that 160 into 2,500 before we donate it. So I will throw that link back up in the comment section here down below once this goes to replay. And again, if you haven't yet, go check the video out on the channel. The thumbnail is just an outline of Nebraska, and it says Nebraska Strong and some other stuff. And I have updated the link to the right money pool for that, so you can go check that out there. So, all right, well, let's go back through and let everybody just kind of wind things down, and anything you want to mention as far as your channel, what's coming up, or any chats or anything else, we will give you a chance to do that. We're going to start with Gary, who has been doing a lot of chatting over on the YouTube side and helping keep up with moderator duties over there, and hasn't been super vocal in the process. So, Gary, anything you want to say here tonight, you go ahead.
Well, I've been trying to think of anything I could input into the conversation, but I don't have. I mean, I know things aren't perfect, but I'm not sure how you could do them any better and make them more perfect. So, to tell you the truth, check out my channel, my website at gizzardgary.com. Foul Territory on Friday nights, 9 Eastern, 8 Central. Early Bird Chat Sunday mornings, 10 Eastern, 9 Central. Thanks for everybody for their support, and thanks for the invite.
Absolutely, and thanks for joining us. All right, Jim, I know you just got here, but we're going to let you sign off too.
Well, thanks for the invite. I know I got here late, but I was dealing with my own little experiment in local government called the HOA board, which was all kinds of fun.
It doesn't sound like it.
No, it's not really. But anyway, it wasn't so bad. It could have been a lot worse. But yeah, I was glad to jump in, and thanks for listening to me ramble for a few minutes.
Yeah, no problem. Come ramble anytime you want.
And speaking of HOAs, he just gave us a perfect example of a democracy in action.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
But even
right.
Even that thing has some governing documents that.
Yeah, that depends on the HOA. Because when I was in Illinois, I told them to go pound sand.
So it is a republic because you do have laws that govern what happens.
In our place, we have deed restrictions and bylaws, and we can change those to some degree. Some are hard, like deed restrictions are really hard to change. We could change them, but it's kind of like a constitutional amendment on a small level. So, yeah, but yeah, it's the same thing. It's not just whatever people want to do. So, but yeah, that's a whole nother barrel of monkeys we can get into someday.
I've seen some homeowners associations where it's mob rule 50+1. it's crazy. You're lucky you got one of the good ones.
Yeah. All right. So moving right along, we will let David say, well, I guess good night. Say good night, David.
Good night, David. Hey, thanks for having me, man. I love a good conversation, and there's always a good conversation on this show. I appreciate it. And everybody go check out Black Cat Outdoors channel, Roll Call 219's channel, and Rupan RX's channel. They do a lot of really cool stuff from their mobile, and with the new YouTube rules, they can't go live on mobile anymore, and I know that affected Roll Call big time, being over at Wanamaker. The Black Cat's got a rally coming up in Pennsylvania on May 6th. And then Rupan has always got the coolest guns and does the coolest live stuff at the range. And all that came to a crashing halt just by one little flick of the button that YouTube flipped the other day. So go check out those guys, give them some support, and let's see if we can't get them up to 1,000.
Absolutely. So is that the new rule now? You have to have 1,000 subscribers before you can do mobile live streaming?
Yeah, for YouTube. I mean, there's still other platforms, Streamlabs and such, But as far as YouTube goes, you have to have 1,000 subscribers, and they've got to be verified. So, like, if you hit 10,000 today, you probably still won't be able to live stream for a little while until you're actually verified at 10,000.
It's kind of like being monetized. I think it took 2 months from the time that I qualified before I got the email that said that I could do a little ad revenue sharing there. But yeah, those of us who and I didn't do anything to get over 1,000. I just had one video that went big and people subbed to the channel, and I've been very blessed. So I don't always know what's going on for my friends who aren't there yet. But if you are listening to this and you're on YouTube and you have not gone and subscribed to Gizzard Gary, Jim Burgess, Kingpin, Obnoxious One, what's your channel under? Is it This Week Unloaded, Rich?
Unloaded Media.
Unloaded Media, thank you. Squibload, Travis P11. Make sure that that you're going and subscribing to all of these great people, because it's the subscribers, it's the interaction, the thumbs up, the comments on the videos, watching all the videos. That's what actually lets YouTube know that we like these people, we like what they're doing. It's not just a matter of subscribing. You've got to actually pay attention to them too. So watch their videos, watch their live chats, and keep them relevant in YouTube's eyes more than just relevant in our eyes. So, alrighty, moving right along. Obnoxious One, what do you have you want to wrap up with?
I have coming out tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? No, Thursday. I have a video with 3 young guys who are starting up a Cerakote business. They're in the Tulsa area. They did some really nice work, and they're going to be the first real thing coming out of Wanamaker from me, because I was also in the live apocalypse. So it pretty much shut down about half of what I was planning to do between J.M. Davis and Wanamaker. So I've got that coming out. I've got let's see. I got an interview with Wild West Guns that'll be coming out. I got an interview with Fort Scott Ammunition that's coming out. I'm going to have a couple that are just different things going around the show itself. One is going to be all the unusual different stuff that wasn't guns there at the show. And check out my channel. I'm not sure if I'll be live Thursday or Saturday this week, so keep an eye on that. And thanks for having me.
And thanks for being here. All right, Unloaded Media, This Week Unloaded, Rich White.
Yes, that will be Sunday night at 8 Eastern, by the way. The channel is Unloaded Media, and the show is This Week Unloaded. And Obnoxious is extremely talented, folks. Even with not being able to go live, he still put out a 2-second replacement for the closer that was better than the original.
Yes, it was. That was me testing Streamlabs, so that does have some functionality. It's not great, but it's an option, and that was just me testing it, and the fact that I was there at Wanamaker and hadn't paid for the Wi-Fi. So I had 4 bars. I had full bars on my phone and virtually no data.
That's awesome.
Because of the mass of people that were there.
Because of the bandwidth redistributing that's been going on there?
Yes.
See,
yes.
You should have done what I did for Caliber Corner. I went live before 8 a.m. and I had full access to everything. So
that's right. You've got to get there early.
Yep.
And get signed into the Wi-Fi before everybody else does.
Yep. Yeah, that was the key.
That's key. All right. So moving along, Squibload, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for the invite. Good show tonight. Had fun hanging out with all you guys.
Always a pleasure. Anything new coming out, speaking Squibbish?
I spent the past week making videos while traveling, and I spent a long time downloading them off of 3 cameras, and I tried to play back some of it, and one of my cameras, the mic must have went out on it. So I've got to do voiceovers if I decide to use some of the video. So I'm going to spend a lot of time sorting through and editing and seeing what I can come up with. But hopefully it's some stuff that some people might find interesting. If you like traveling to America's Southwest, I might have some videos that might be useful. I still have to sort through all the footage. Some of it just might end up as scrap, and you'll see it in the background. I'm speaking Squibbish as I slam on the brakes so I don't run over Mr. Bunny.
Yeah, we can't be running over little critters on a
No, I gotta save Mr. Bunny so Mr. Hawk can eat him.
That's right. That's right. We need to redistribute the bunnies to not on the road is what we need to do. So, all right. And then, of course, we had Travis joining us, also from the great state of Nebraska.
Yeah, man. Hey, appreciate the invite as usual. It's always great discussions on Tuesday nights. I really look forward to it. And again, guys, subscribe to everybody on the panel. Check out guntube.org. Check out gunchannels.com. And Thursday from 5 to 7 Central Time, check out Caliber Corner over on gunchannels.com. Little firearms podcast that we host every week. So make sure you guys are there. Thanks, man.
Awesome. And Caliber Corner is a great show. And I just, man, it bugs me that I can't be there all the time now. Because I really do like taking part of that. So
I know. Like I said, it's maybe at some point we'll get her back to Saturday, but for now it's the best I can do. So
that's all right. You might find out that you get twice as many people watching you, on Thursday night. So it might be the best thing that ever happened to it too.
Yeah, it's a good time slot though. It's a lot of fun because it's for people on the weekends just getting up gives them something to listen to, and a lot of people on the road and stuff. So yeah.
Heck yeah. All righty. And again, I just want to thank everybody on the panel. I want to thank everybody over in Gun Channels and everybody who kept the chat lively on the YouTube side too. These discussions are only great because of everyone else who joins them. I can't do this on my own. I mean, I could sit here and talk for a couple hours. We established that a couple weeks ago. But it's not a lively discussion the same way it is when we have everybody in here. So we did get some good feedback though, and we got some, a lot of views. So I think we might keep that going for the next couple months. The last chat of the month will be no panel, just a Q&A, more intimate chat with the viewers. Sandhills, Sweetheart, and me both taking part in that. And that one we can also do live from Facebook as well at the same time. But and we got to find out something because we've got a couple extra Tuesdays in the month of April. I think there's 5 Tuesdays. So I don't know what else the month is going to bring, but I do know next week we're going to kick open another can of worms and talk about border security and immigration. So that one's coming next week. Make sure you don't miss that as well. And anybody that wants to bring their opinion, whatever it is, if we've got people, because I'm guessing most of the people on the panel are going to not feel a whole lot differently than I do, that we need to secure the border. We don't want an open border. We want to make sure that we know who's coming in and have a say-so in who's coming into the country. But if anybody wants to come in and advocate for the opposite of that, please let me know. Either comment below on this video or send an email to sandhillsshooter@gmail.com or catch me on Facebook at the Sandhills Shooter page. And let me know your opinion. And if you want to come on the show and just have a discussion, not even a debate, just a discussion. We're not going to yell at each other, get, talking over each other, anything like that. I always want to know opposing viewpoints. I don't have all the answers. I act like it sometimes, but I don't have all the answers. And not, my opinion's not the only one and not necessarily the right one. And so anybody who wants to come in next week and be part of the panel and be part of that discussion, we love that. I don't always want this to be an echo chamber. So, anybody, like I said, anybody that wants to have a different viewpoint, go ahead and do that. Real quick here.
You're bringing Yankee in?
Maybe, but no.
I wanted to build a wall around my property, but I was told it was racist.
What was that?
I wanted to build a wall around my property, but I was told it was racist.
Which is weird because I have walls around my house.
Yeah, just change your name to Nancy Pelosi. It'll be all fine.
Okay. No.
The thing is, though, Obnoxious, you identify as not racist. So you could say whatever you want to anybody, but as long as you identify as not racist, then we have to accept you for that. So just like Creepy Uncle Joe does not identify as
creepy,
inappropriate. And so anything that he did when he was touching women, sniffing their hair, He didn't see it as inappropriate, therefore it becomes appropriate.
If you have seen any of the Instagram photos, I did full Biden roll call, and roll call leaned right into it. I gotta say, so it wasn't real. I don't know. Is that a full Biden if the person really leans into it?
I don't know. I don't think it counts if they enjoy it. No.
Okay, snob. I full Biden snob, and he did not lean into it the first time.
Do I dare ask what his hair smelled like?
Disappointment.
Is that the new disappointment smell?
It smelled like disappointment and regret.
Okay. All right. And then over on the gun channel side, Jim did join in the chat over there. So hey, back to you. I think that's Fat Albert's line, not yours. We had Pete over there. We had Rich White over there. David over there. Husker, Nebraska was in the house coming to us from Ewing, which is we just drove through there over the weekend a couple times. So thanks for joining us, and said he's been here before, but I must have missed it. So thanks everybody for joining us on the gun channel side. Now a whole list of people we're talking over on the YouTube side, and I always missed it because you can only scroll up so far in the chat, and you don't get to see everybody that was there at the beginning. But as I've said before, I have the best wife in the world. This is what she does as we're going through the chat, and she sees new people talking. So I have the comprehensive list of people, and in no particular order. Thank you for joining us, Mike, Tacos and French Fries, Guitar Man Pete, SS Pawn, Jason Stewart, Midnight Range TM, Gun Love and Grandpa Stanley, Boob Sweat Leads to Pearl Necklaces, Gizzard Gary, Gunpowder Beauty, Bass Boy Agorizer, Kingpin Rupan, the Tennessee Gun Guy. I don't know if I saw him before, but I did see him tonight. Scott P79, Smarty Pants, Kinky Sphincter. That one always makes me smile. Poor Conservative, Codename Nebraska, the Gun Snob, the guy that comments, Freedom for All, Ozzy was here, Seven Wonders, Roll Call, Armament and Axes, Ghost was in the house, Too Hottie, Patrick, Rob D, Samurai 215, Jim Burgess, and Keith Gregory. Better late than never, Keith. So we do thank you for showing up and saying hi. If you are watching on YouTube and you're watching live and you're not commenting, we don't know you're here. So we want to say hi to you. We want to thank you for joining us. We can't have these chats without people watching them. And just like with the panel, the chat is what keeps this going, keeps it lively. So everybody that joins us, whether you're doing it live or whether you're watching after the fact, and you want to make some comments down below, we love that too. If you like what we do, please share the channel, share the videos. And again, anybody that wants to support, you don't have to. I'm not begging, but anybody that wants to support us can do that over on Patreon or on Gunstreamer. We do have the contribute us set up on Gunstreamer as well. Kingpin got here first, he says, and made the first comment. So thanks for that, Kingpin. Way to be ahead of the curve there. All right, this has been 2A Tuesday. Again, thanks everybody for joining us. We love all of you. God bless you. What is it? Bye, Felicia, that we have to say, right?
Bye, Alicia.
Adios, Felicia. Te amo.
Up and going.
Te amo, Felicia. Mi amor.
Give him the bird.
There.
Something
Hashtag
or
Porky
other
Piggin.
about
Porky Piggin.
infringements that shall not happen. I'm not really too sure how the saying goes.
I ain't got no tagline.
There's shall not be infringed.
Shall not be infringed.
Good one. But my favorite, guys, is always going to be get off my lawn.